Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Zero to Hero with Vivek, the JavaScript series. Here you will learn most complicated concept of JavaScript with a simplified way. Today I am picking a topic that called reduce. So reduce, like most of the JavaScript developer can use map and filter, but reduce, that's where the people get stuck. So a lot of people confuse with the reduce, like uh, either they are the beginners or the experienced one. They get confused with the reduce. But in this video I'll explain JavaScript reduce from zero and with the real example and visual thinkings, and by the end of this video you'll say, oh, reduce is easy to use. Yeah, so let's start. So the name itself tells the story. What's reduce? So the reduce is the uh, array prototype, is the method on the array prototype of the JavaScript. So we can call reduce on the array. And what its name tells? Reduce. Reduce means you can reduce large array into a single value. The single value can be either your object, your string number, object, or array itself, and like another array itself, right? So it's depend on how output you want. You can derive output using a reduce. So let's see a basic syntax of the reduce. So I'll make sure you don't need to memorize this syntax. You don't need to keep remembered all the times, right? But you will learn it once you heard the name reduce. You can easily drop the syntax. Okay, so let's start with the simple syntax. What's reduce? So reduce we can call on the array dot reduce. Okay, so it's the method on the array, and what it accept? It's accept callback function. So I'll not use the word callback, which will make you confused, but let's understand. It accept reduce accept two arguments. One is the function and second is the initial value. We'll see what is the initial value, and for this value, this initial value goes here. Okay, so the first argument is function. Okay, so function, so it's the callable function you need to give. So complete function definition you have to pass here, and second argument is your initial value. Okay, now we have the function. That means uh, first first argument is function, second is the initial value. Now this function also accept two arguments. One is accumulator. Okay, and second argument is current value. So current value of what? Let's think of it. The current value is value of the array, because we are calling reduce on the array. So when we work on the reduce, internally reduce work on the like a iteration. It's work into the iterations. That means in the very first iteration, on which element of or the what index of the array it's working on, that should be a current value of it. And what is the accumulator? So accumulator is nothing but the memory of the reduce, which store your current iteration result. So whatever the current iteration you are performing, whatever the business logic in that iteration you are performing, so what result derived of that business logic or the business calculation, it will hold that value into the accumulator. So if I just simplify reduce, reduce is nothing but just like an loop, like you have the for loop, while loop, but it with the itself a memory. So whatever the max logic you need to like a stretch logic you need to write with the other loops, you can write this into the single line using a reduce. Okay, so reduce is the loop with memory. That is the simple definition of the reduce. Okay, and what is accumulator? So accumulator, as I said, reduce is the loop with memory. So accumulator is its memory. Okay, and this initial value is nothing but what initial value that we need to hold into the memory, that is into the accumulator. So whatever the initial value we define here, that will goes into the accumulator at the very first iteration, and into at the second iteration whatever the calculation we return, that will be a memory value of the accumulator. So that calculation whatever we return, it will go into accumulator. Okay, we'll see it by example. I'll show you like iteration by iteration how internally reduce work. Okay, so let's take we'll start with the very simple example, right? How we can use the reduce. Now let's consider I have array of numbers. So numbers, so I'll define here array of numbers, and it would be like I'll create 1 2 and 4. Let's take this one. Okay, so I have array of 5 numbers, 1 2 3 4 4. Now I want to do a summation of this number. How I'll do? I'll do using for loop, right? I can do it using a for loop. For loop, this is my for loop, and I'll just do let's define one sum variable to hold our sum here. So sum and initial value would be 0 for it. Okay, now here sum is equal to simplified way, right? So everyone knows how we do a sum. This is the simple logic to do a summation, right? So sum the initial value, and we'll add in it in each and every iteration. We'll add this value to a summation. Okay, and now let's print it. Console.log. This is the way we print console statement into JavaScript. Okay, sum of numbers using for loop. We'll give it using for loop, and this is the variable which hold the sum, and just try to execute it. How do you execute any .js file in Node.js? You have to give a syntax like a node, and you have to give that JS file path. Now in this case I have created my JS file in src directory, so and I am in the root of my project, so I need to give absolute path of this, right? So what should be my path? Src, and what's my file name? Test.js. Okay, now let's run it. If you see the sum of number using for loop, it's 15. Now can I do this with the much cleaner way, much simplified way in the JavaScript? The answer is yes. Here is the concept reduce come into the picture. Okay, let's do it. So I'll call reduce on this number array. I'll hold constant sum with reduce, and I'll call this number dot reduce. So first value is my accumulator. To reduce, like as a syntax asks us that reduce method accept two uh, two arguments. First argument is the uh, method or the function, and second argument is the initial value. Okay, so now, so this is the first argument, and the first argument which is function, and function itself accept two arguments, that is current value and accumulator. So accumulator is the very first argument, and the current value is the second argument. So when reduce work into the iteration, itself into the iteration, the current value will get pushed, and the accumulator, which is the memory variable which will be available inside this methods calculation. Okay, and if you are aware of these array functions, so I have defined here array function, right? I'll If you are getting confused this, but let's first run it. Console dot log using reduce, and let's see if you are getting the same result or not. Yes, we are getting same result, but if you are getting confused with this single line, I can do this much just into the single line, but just to understand you, I'll just expand it more clear way. Okay, let's do it so I can show you better, so you'll not get confused. Okay, how I am using this function and everything. But if I run this, let's see what we'll get. It will give us some error, undefined error, not error but undefined. Okay, why undefined? At the very initially, this getting to the accumulator. Okay, accumulator is doing this calculation, but in second iteration, accumulator is not get updating. That's in every iteration, accumulator is expecting some value to be written and getting stored here. If we are not returning the value, it will be undefined. That's why the result we are getting undefined here. Okay, so here we are doing the summation, and we are not we are just treating it as an number like a variable. That's why we are getting here undefined. But in the very other we'll take another example to show you more, to understand how in the complex scenario how we can use the reduce. That time I'll let you know, or I'll show you. If you don't return value, even you can get errors. Okay, so in this case, if you are not returning, so if you are not returning, you will get the undefined. So make sure, and it's very important, you need to return. Now you might be confused why in the other case I haven't written, right? Let's go back and do why I haven't written. So it's the uh, uh, programming concept of JavaScript. If you are writing anything like a method, uh, uh, if you define methods and it's complete business logic in a one line, so it's those values getting automatically written. Okay, but if you are now breaking it down into multiple and block level, so in the block level, this is the block level, right? So in the block level, you have to return it by yourself. Okay, let's do it. And now let's return it. Now see it again, running it once, you will see we are getting a result 15. Okay, now I'll show you how this run iteration by iteration. Let's take an example of this. If I can take this into this screen, okay, I can do it, right? Just to simplify you. Okay, this is the iteration. So now we have the 5 values here. That means we have the 4 indexes from 0 to 4. So in every iteration, how in every iteration reduce work? In iteration 1, uh, we have defined initial value, that the initial value will go to the accumulator. So that's why accumulator has the value 0 in very first iteration, right? So accumulator got value 0. Current values, now it's into the very first iteration, so that means we are at here, index 0, and index 0 has value 1. So that means current value is, this current value is 1, and the result is whatever the calculation we are doing, accumulator plus current value. So accumulator is 0, and current value is 1, so 0 plus 1, that is 1. Now we are returning these results, we are return this result, the result is 1, and once we return this result, it would be a it would be a accumulator's next value. That means into the iteration 0, it would be a accumulator value. So whatever the result in the before iteration, like a previous iteration, so whatever the result of the previous iteration, if you return that result, it will be the next value of the accumulator. So if you don't return it from here, the next iteration, the value of accumulator will be undefined, that we saw, right? Now coming to the second iteration, what's the accumulator value? 1, which is the result from the previous iteration, and the current value, as we navigated to the next iteration, that means we came into first index, right? And first index has a value 2, that means current value is 2 here. Okay, and reduce automatically retrieve those values from the index by index. Okay, so you don't need to care about it. It will automatically retrieve these values from the indexes. So hence in the second iteration, current value is 2. Now 2 plus 1 is 3. Now here again we are returning. That means once we return this result, it will be a value of our accumulator into the upcoming iteration. And same goes for the number of iteration you perform. Okay, I hope you understand how how reduce internally work. Now I would like to take another example, which will be which will help you to understand the power of reduce. Now let's take an example of letters, and this is very good example for your interview as well. So if either you are the beginner, mid-level experience, or the uh, experts or the advanced level uh, experience, right? In any interview, this is a very common question. uh, this is the very common question will be asked, like if you have the array of letters, you need to count how many times A came, how many times B came, how many times C came, or anything. Like if you take anything, like you are taking the names in your name, how many times uh, uh, the letters came, right? Let's take an example. Constant letters, letters, and I would take letters like this way. Instead of taking all this D, I'll repeat some of the letter. I'll make A 3 times. Okay, B, again A, and okay. So now if you see, I have A defined 3 times, I have B defined 2 times, and I have C defined. Now interviewer asks me calculate or count how many times A came, B came, and C came, and I want result into a JSON object this way. A came 3 times, B came 2 times, and C came 1 time. Okay, so now how you will do it? If I wanted to use the power of reduce and I wanted to simplify my code, I wanted to do uh, like a create an impression in the interview, I'll use reduce. And how? I'll call constant letter count, I'll call reduce onto the letters array. Okay, and what it accept? Letter array accept function. I'll close this function, I'll close my reduce method. Is it completed? You will don't see any syntax error here, but it also, if you see where when I explain you syntax, what reduce accept, reduce accept one function, reduce accept two arguments. First is the function that's we already defined, and second is the initial value, right? In our case, what is the initial value? Because I wanted to hold this result into a JSON object, so I need to pass the blank JSON object. Okay, so in this case I am passing, this is my blank JSON object. You can define, if you need to change the format, you can do it. That's the beauty of reduce. The way you think you want it result, you will get that result. Okay, so you can consider accumulator as a box where you are taking this box or the bag, you are taking this with in each iteration to the elements, and whatever the calculations you performing, yeah, and whatever the results come out of that calculator you will be putting that result back into the box or the bag. Okay, so in this case, this is our bag, JSON array, this is our bag, and we are putting our results, our findings into that bag. But my bag initially is empty because I don't know what I need to what I need to put there, what I have, and what I need to calculate. I know what I need to calculate, but I don't know what is the result. So my initially my bag is empty, so I am passing my empty bag there, right? And now I need to write my logic. The logic is for what? I need to count how many times my letters coming. Each and every letters is coming, right? So how will I do it? I'll just simply do it. Since my bag is empty, so I need to put it the way like a colon 3. So I draft a. So a is the any number, right? So I know this accumulator, I have the empty bag, so I'll use the accumulator, my empty bag there, and I need to draw cur like a current value. Let's make it a current value, so it will be better to understand. It will be better to understand current value. So accumulator is my current value. So what's the current value? That means accumulator. So what it will create? Current value means it will create like a box of sorry box of current value is a. This will it will create, and whatever we assign to it is equal sign, right? So it will go as a colon, and whatever the value we define here, value, it will go as a value here. I hope you understand what I am doing here, right? So now we need to calculate value. We know we got this, we came till this point, but we need actual value instead of this value variable, right? I'll calculate actual value of it? Let's check. The simplest way, I'll first check if my bag has the current value variable store or the current value letter in my bag. So how will I check? Accumulator of current value, and so I'll be using here ternary logic. Okay, so what in his, so JavaScript provide a very simplest way, right? If if it find any value, that means accumulator has the current letter, then it will return you a value. But if it doesn't have any letter, it will return you a undefined, and undefined will be considered as, this is the ternary logic, right? So in the undefined will be considered as a false value, right? So since if it's the false value, then we will be, if it's the true, let's consider like I already have something in the bag. Hypothetically, if I have something into the bag, what I need to do, I need to take that bag, that letter value. I have this current letter, current, instead of making its current value, I'll make it current letter, so we'll not be confused. Okay, current letter, let's make it current letter and current letter. Okay, I hope uh, it will be more clear to you. Okay, so if my accumulator has current letter, so what I need to do, I need to retrieve its value. So I'll retrieve its value this way. This way I'll retrieve its value and I'll add 1 to it. Why plus 1 to it? Because I need to increment its value, because I need to increase its count. Like a first, if it has into the bag, that means it would be already been found 1 or 2 times, right? So what if it has been found 2 times, then I need to increase the plus 1. If it has been found 1 time, I have to increase it 1 and make it 2. So this will give you the current count, how many times it's already been found, and we will be adding plus 1 to it. And if it's not present at all in our bag, that means in accumulator, I just need to assign it a 1, that it's found, it's been found very first time. That's it. Now we need to return the accumulator. If you don't return, you know what will you get? You will get either error or the undefined. So last time when we see, we got undefined. we will see this time what we get and why. Okay, let's try to print it and let's see if whatever the result we were expecting, are we getting the same or not. Let's go, let's run it again once again, and if you see, we are getting the result as expected. Now let's see if you don't return what we will get. Let's run it and you will see we are getting property reading B undefined, cannot read a property of undefined. Why? Because we are not returning any value the very first time this iteration work. If you see, for the it's got filled for the B, that's means for here, but very first time for the A it work. Why? Because very first time we had this value available for the accumulator, that are empty box, and in the empty box we are checking the current letter, that A, and that time it found, it's calculated, it assigned this one, but we haven't written, that means we haven't put anything into the bag. Now if you are not returning anything, so in the second iteration, what reduce thing, use like a user or the programmer doesn't return anything, that means it's the undefined. So initially whatever we have assigned as a bag to it, that is the empty JSON object, in the next iteration it will not even have those that empty object as well. So remember, and that's very important, you have to return your result to make sure your reduce work fine. Okay, so let's uncomment it, let's run it one more time. And if I see how this complex problem is solved very easily using reduce, there are a lot of complex problem which can you easily solve using reduce. And I hope uh, uh, before starting with this video you was in fear how to use reduce, or you haven't have any idea what is reduce and how to use it. But after this video you does not need to memorize syntax. You been quite understood now what reduce can do, what its power, and how you can use it into a very complex scenario as well. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next learning session. Thank you.